Elia's ward stepped off the transport platform, feeling the strange vibrations of the planet beneath his boots. Thalzar was nothing like Earth. The sky shimmered with two suns, one golden and one faint blue, casting long shadows over the crystal towers that stretched high into the clouds. Every surface sparkled like carefully cut gemstones, and the air carried a subtle hum, almost like a song. Elias tried to steady his nerves. He was a diplomat, trained for tense negotiations and delicate situations, but nothing in his years of preparation could have readied him for what awaited him here. The transport doors opened with a soft hiss, and a wave of Thalzarian attendants flowed out to greet him. They were tall and slender, their skin reflecting the light like polished silver, their eyes larger than a human's, glowing faintly with curiosity. Elias nodded politely, though his instincts told him that their attention wasn't entirely friendly. Humans were rare visitors to Thalzar, and most aliens of this empire viewed them as short-lived, unpredictable, and a bit foolish. Elias had heard stories of ambassadors who came here thinking diplomacy was about negotiation and left embarrassed or worse. He followed the attendants through a corridor that twisted and curved in impossible ways, each turn revealing more of the alien architecture, more of the glittering crystal city. Despite his training, Elias couldn't help but feel a twinge of awe. Everything was perfectly clean, perfectly ordered, and yet alive. He wasn't sure whether the structures themselves were sentient or if it was the subtle energy that radiated from them. Either way, he felt very small. Finally, the attendants brought him to a vast chamber, larger than any hall he had ever seen. The floor was a seamless surface of dark crystal, reflecting the alien sunlight in patterns that shifted and shimmered as he moved. At the far end of the hall, sitting on a throne that seemed to float slightly above the ground, was the queen herself, Zaelith, ruler of the Thalzarian Empire. She was breathtaking and terrifying at the same time. Her skin glimmered like polished metal, her eyes shone with intelligence and curiosity, and her presence filled the room with authority so absolute that Elias felt his chest tighten. "Elias Ward," the queen said, her voice both melodic and commanding. "Welcome to Thalzar." "Your Majesty," Elias said, bowing as best as he could. His knees ached slightly from the long journey, but he straightened quickly, trying to convey confidence. "It is an honor to represent Earth in your city." The queen studied him with those bright, alien eyes. Elias felt as if she could see every thought, every hesitation, every insecurity. He shifted slightly, reminding himself that humans had survived thousands of years in environments far harsher than this. He could handle this. Then she said the words that froze him in place. "My daughter likes you and you are marrying her tomorrow, human." For a moment, Elias thought he had misheard. His brain refused to process the statement. Marrying the daughter of an alien queen, tomorrow, on a planet he had just arrived on. This was not part of any diplomatic briefing he had ever received. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The attendants remained silent, their expressions unreadable. The queen leaned forward slightly, her gaze unwavering. "Do not look so shocked. My daughter has been observing your species for some time. She finds your curiosity, your adaptability, and your courage intriguing. You will marry her." Elias swallowed hard. I think there must be some misunderstanding, Your Majesty." "I am honored by your attention truly, but marriage—" "It is not a misunderstanding," Zaelith interrupted, her tone leaving no room for debate. "This is a matter of diplomacy and the future of our peoples. Refusal would not be wise, but do not worry, human. This is not merely a duty. My daughter has chosen you. She has a mind and spirit that she values in a partner. You are not being forced against her will." Elias blinked. The words barely made sense to him. He had studied alien cultures, had read about arranged marriages and political unions, but this was entirely different. It was personal, intimate in a way he was unprepared for, yet political beyond his comprehension. He realized quickly that saying no was not an option if he wanted to maintain Earth standing in this part of the galaxy. "Then, I will do my best to honor your daughter and your people," he said carefully. "But may I meet her before tomorrow?" The queen inclined her head. "She awaits you. Follow me." Elia's heart pounded as he followed her down another corridor, each step echoing against the crystal walls. He tried to think logically. He had been sent here to negotiate trade agreements, technology sharing, and peaceful coexistence. Now he was being thrust into a situation he had never imagined. But he was a human. Humans had survived floods, ice ages, wars, and pandemics. Humans had walked on other worlds, not yet conquered, and had thrived where logic said they could not. He could handle this. Somehow. The queen led him to a smaller chamber filled with light and color. At the center stood a figure, her appearance strikingly different from the court attendants. She was younger than the queen, but there was a regal quality to her that made it clear she was heir to the throne. Her eyes, large and expressive, studied Elia's with an intensity that was almost unsettling. "Lyraeth," the queen said softly, "meet the human." Lyraeth inclined her head, a small smile curving her lips. "I have heard about you," she said in perfect galactic common. "It seems that you are different from what most expect of humans." Elia swallowed. I hope that is in a good way," she laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "It is. We do not have many humans visiting our world. Most come to trade or to learn, and they follow their instructions carefully. You think for yourself." He felt a small surge of pride. "I try to." They walked together through the chamber, talking quietly. Elias learned that Lyraeth was fascinated by humans' ability to adapt, to improvise, and to survive against odds that would crush many alien species. She asked about Earth, about its politics, its cultures, its wars, and its art. In turn, he asked about her world, her people, and her role as the heir to an empire spanning hundreds of star systems. As the sun shifted in the Thalzarian sky, Elias realized that despite the strangeness of the situation, he was learning valuable things about a people that had always seen humans as inferior. And in doing so, he began to understand a key truth. Humanity had an edge not in strength, not in technology, but in spirit, in curiosity, in courage, in the willingness to face impossible situations and still find solutions. The evening came quickly, and with it, the preparations for the ceremony. The queen informed him that the next day would be formal and the trial of worth would follow. "Do not be afraid, human. You will need all your wits," she said. Elias felt a mix of anxiety and determination. Humans had faced challenges their size and technology could not overcome, and they had prevailed. He would do the same here. He might be a guest on an alien world, thrust into an unimaginable situation, but he was a human. That meant something. That meant he had a chance to survive, to impress, and perhaps to change the galaxy in ways he could not yet imagine. As he looked out over the city from a balcony of the royal palace, watching the twin suns sink below crystal spires, he felt a strange sense of calm. Whatever came next, he would face it as a human, with ingenuity, with courage, and with the quiet determination that had carried his species across centuries of impossible odds. The next morning, the ceremony would begin. Tomorrow, he would meet the trial of worth. But tonight, he allowed himself a moment to appreciate the view, the stars, and the undeniable fact that humans had arrived on Thalzar, and perhaps were about to leave their mark. The morning sun of Thalzar broke across the crystal towers like streams of liquid gold. Elias stood in the grand hall, his hands folded in front of him, trying to steady his heartbeat. Today was the day of the trial of worth, a test he knew would determine not just his place in the royal court, but possibly the future of humanity's relationship with the Thalzarian Empire. The hall where the trial was to take place stretched farther than Elias could see, its walls gleaming with intricate crystal patterns. The floor seemed alive, reflecting the sunlight in constantly changing colors, almost as if the building itself were observing him. Around him, alien spectators gathered, nobles, scholars, and warriors. Their expressions were neutral, but Elias felt the weight of thousands of eyes studying him, judging him. Humans were rare in this empire, and most had failed spectacularly at the trial. Queen Zalith entered first, her presence commanding silence. Her silver skin shimmered in the morning light and her eyes glowed brighter than ever. She nodded to Elias, and he felt a mixture of fear and respect. Then Lyreth entered. The princess walked gracefully, her movements like water flowing over rocks. Her gaze met Elias's, and he saw curiosity, amusement, and a faint spark of admiration. It was comforting, though he could not afford to relax. "The trial of worth is not a simple test," the queen announced. "It is designed to challenge every aspect of your mind and spirit. It is not your strength nor your speed that will determine success. It is your insight, your judgment, and your ability to adapt. Many who enter fail because they assume the trial can be solved like a puzzle. Few understand that the trial changes with the participant. You may begin." With a graceful motion, the queen signaled. The hall seemed to shift. Suddenly, Elias was no longer standing on a solid floor, but on a platform suspended in midair above a glowing chasm. The air hummed with energy, and he felt his balance tested as the platform tilted and rotated. His first instinct was to panic, but he remembered the queen's words. This was not about physical strength. He took a deep breath and focused. Humans had survived far worse environments, from frozen tundras to desert storms. He could handle this. A voice echoed in his mind, not loud but clear. "Solve the problem to proceed. Failure is not permitted." The platform began to shift more violently. Panels of crystal rose and fell beneath him, forming patterns that suggested a sequence, a puzzle. He realized quickly that the trial demanded observation, reasoning, and memory. Each panel had a symbol, some resembling patterns on Thalzar's city walls, others entirely alien. He stepped carefully, placing his weight on panels that seemed stable, testing his assumptions, correcting them when they failed. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time was strange here, moving unpredictably with the trial. At one point, the platform dissolved into a bridge of light stretching over an endless void. A voice whispered riddles, asking Elias to consider ethics, consequences, and the value of life. One test involved choosing which of two paths to take, each with unseen consequences for invisible beings. Another asked him to make a choice that could harm him if he made the wrong decision, or reward him greatly if he chose wisely. Elias found that the key was to think like a human. Unlike the Thalzarians, who relied on tradition and strict logic, he relied on creativity, empathy, and adaptability. Where the aliens would see rules, he saw options. Where they would hesitate, he acted. He moved carefully, using intuition and reasoning together, balancing courage with caution. At one point, he faced a simulation where an entire alien city was in danger. Robots and drones, controlled by the trial, asked him which group of citizens should be saved first. There was no perfect choice, only a responsible one. He quickly analyzed the situation and made decisions based on minimizing overall harm. The simulation shifted immediately, presenting a new, more complex scenario. It seemed to recognize his thought process, adapting to challenge him further. Lyreth watched from the side, her expression thoughtful. She had seen many aliens fail, seeing them trapped by rigid thought patterns, unable to adapt when the trial evolved. Elias, however, approached each challenge with curiosity and determination. He made mistakes, of course, but he corrected them quickly, learning from the trial itself rather than letting it dictate his actions. The trial grew stranger. The platform turned into a room filled with mirrors that reflected not his appearance, but his thoughts, fears, and memories. Voices whispered doubts in languages he didn't understand. He saw visions of failure, of Earth being destroyed, of humans being insignificant. For a moment he felt fear gnaw at him, but he remembered the stories of humanity's past. Humans had faced plagues, wars, natural disasters, and extinction-level threats. They had endured. They had adapted. Drawing on that inner strength, Elias focused. The mirrors no longer showed fear, but clarity. He could see patterns in the chaos, solutions where others might see only danger. He realized that the trial wasn't trying to destroy him. It was testing whether a human's unique perspective could meet the challenges of the galaxy. He moved confidently, navigating the mirrors, the platforms, and the riddles with careful observation, quick thinking, and moral clarity. Finally, he reached the last stage. A massive crystal door rose before him, shimmering with light. Etched into it were symbols that he had never seen, yet somehow recognized. He stepped forward and pressed his hand against the crystal. A warmth spread through him, and he felt a connection to the trial itself. It was as if the challenges, the puzzles, and the simulations were all part of a single entity, testing not just knowledge but spirit. The door opened silently. Elias stepped through. He found himself back in the grand hall, the Thalzarian nobles watching in silence. He had completed the trial. Many of the aliens looked shocked. Humans were not expected to pass, let alone excel. Queen Zalith regarded him quietly, her eyes glowing with a mix of surprise and curiosity. "You have done what none before have achieved," she said. "You have completed the trial of worth not by following its rules but by understanding them. Tell me, human, what gives you this strength?" Elias paused, choosing his words carefully. "It is not strength in the way you measure it. It is the way humans survive. We think, we adapt, we care. We face impossible situations and keep moving forward because we must. That is what allows us to succeed where others fail." Lyreth stepped forward, smiling. "I have seen it too. Your perspective, your spirit, it is unlike anything our people have known in centuries. Perhaps humans are not so fragile after all." The hall erupted into quiet murmurs, nobles exchanging glances. The trial of worth had been designed to show the superiority of the Thalzarian mind, but instead, it had highlighted humanity's unexpected advantages. Curiosity, creativity, empathy, and adaptability. These were traits that aliens had undervalued for generations. Elias felt a mixture of relief and pride. He had not only survived, but had shown the Empire that humans were capable of more than anyone had believed. He realized that this was only the beginning. The trial had been a test, but the real challenges would come with diplomacy, with alliances, and with the ongoing task of proving that humans could be valuable partners, not weak outsiders. As the sun set over the crystal towers, Elias walked beside Lyreth through the palace gardens. She spoke softly, her voice carrying genuine admiration. "You have changed many minds today, including mine. Perhaps tomorrow, during the ceremony, we will begin a new chapter together, human." Elias nodded, feeling a quiet determination. Humanity had survived for thousands of years against impossible odds. On this alien world, facing challenges that no human had faced before, he had done it again. The galaxy might be full of powerful empires, strange technologies, and alien minds far different from his own, but humanity had a way of making its mark, through ingenuity, courage, and the refusal to be underestimated. He looked up at the twin suns dipping below the horizon, their light reflecting in the crystal towers, and allowed himself a small smile. He had passed the trial, but more importantly, he had proven something to himself and to everyone watching. Humans were not fragile. Humans adapted. Humans endured. And perhaps humans could change the galaxy in ways even the Thalzarians could not yet imagine. Tomorrow would bring the ceremony, and with it, new challenges. But for now, Elias allowed himself a moment of quiet triumph, feeling the pulse of the planet beneath his feet, the gaze of the princess beside him, and the undeniable truth that humanity, once again, had shown its worth. The morning of the ceremony dawned clear and bright over the crystal towers of Thalzar. Elia's ward stood in his formal attire, a suit of simple human design, yet cut and polished to meet the expectations of Thalzarian nobility. He looked out over the city from the balcony of the royal palace, feeling the weight of the day ahead. The trial of worth was behind him, yet the real challenge was about to begin. Today, he would marry Lyraeth, and with that marriage came responsibilities far beyond anything he had faced before. The palace gardens were filled with guests from across the empire, aliens of all shapes, sizes, and colors. Their eyes followed him as he walked toward the ceremonial hall. Many still whispered in disbelief, recalling the trial of worth and the human who had passed when all others had failed. Elias understood their skepticism. Humans were small, short-lived, and unassuming compared to the towering Thalzarians. Yet here he was, standing not as a visitor or diplomat, but as someone chosen to join the royal family. Lyraeth waited at the entrance to the hall, her expression calm but her eyes alive with curiosity. She was dressed in ceremonial robes of her people, flowing and shimmering like liquid crystal. When she saw him, she smiled, and Elias felt a warmth that cut through his nerves. He realized that despite the strangeness of the situation, he was ready. Humanity had faced challenges no alien species could imagine. They had survived plagues, wars, and extinction-level threats. Today would be no different. The queen presided over the ceremony, her presence commanding attention. She spoke in a tone both formal and approving. Today, we unite two minds, two species, and two cultures. This union is not only personal but a symbol of collaboration and understanding between our peoples. Elias listened carefully. The words carried weight. This marriage was more than tradition or ceremony. It was a statement to the entire galaxy that humans and Thalzarians could work together, could respect each other, and could achieve things neither could alone. He straightened his posture, determined to honor that trust. The ceremony began with a series of rituals unfamiliar to him. There were gestures of respect, exchanges of symbols, and recitations in the Thalzarian tongue. Elias followed Lyraeth's lead, observing her movements and mirroring them carefully. She guided him gently, and together they completed each step. Every action carried meaning, every gesture was watched by the audience, yet Elias felt a quiet confidence. Humans were adaptable. They could learn new customs quickly and act with sincerity, which often mattered more than perfection. As they moved to the center of the hall, a series of holographic projections appeared around them, depicting the history of the Thalzarian Empire and the civilizations it had touched. Elias recognized this as a test, not of strength or knowledge, but of understanding. He watched closely, absorbing the stories, noticing patterns, and considering the implications. Where many humans might have been overwhelmed, Elias found insight. Humanity's ability to observe, learn, and apply knowledge in new ways gave him an advantage the Thalzarians did not anticipate. The queen spoke again, her voice ringing with authority. The union of these two shall mark a new era. But before the final vow is taken, let each declare what they bring to this partnership. Lyraeth stepped forward first. I bring understanding of my people, my home, and the values that guide us. I bring loyalty, curiosity, and a willingness to learn from someone different. Elias nodded, taking a deep breath. I bring humanity's spirit. We adapt, we survive, and we innovate. We are small, but we are determined. I bring honesty, courage, and the promise to respect your people and our shared future. I will learn from you as you learn from me. A murmur ran through the crowd. Humans were not expected to speak with such clarity or understanding. Many Thalzarians were accustomed to arrogance or rigid thinking, yet here was a human showing wisdom and humility simultaneously. Elias felt the stirrings of respect, even from the most skeptical observers. The final ritual involved a symbolic binding, representing unity between two worlds. Lyreth and Elias stood together, placing their hands upon a crystal pedestal. Light spread from the pedestal, enveloping them in a glow that seemed to resonate with the energy of the entire hall. The queen's voice echoed, "By this light, you are joined. May your union guide your peoples to understanding, cooperation, and peace." As the light faded, the audience erupted into applause, not of tradition, but of genuine acknowledgement. Humans had always been underestimated, yet Elias had shown that they were capable of more than anyone imagined. He and Lyreth exchanged a glance, a quiet understanding passing between them. This marriage was not merely a formality, it was a partnership, a merging of cultures, and a chance to change the galaxy. Over the following days, Elias observed the subtle shifts in the Empire. Alien leaders who had doubted humans now approached him with questions, seeking advice, strategies, or perspectives they had never considered. Elias realized that humanity's strength lay not in dominance, but in adaptability, creativity, and empathy. Where Thalzarians had relied on hierarchy and tradition, humans offered flexibility and innovation. Lyreth became a bridge between their worlds. She encouraged dialogue, asking Elias about human society, ethics, and problem-solving. Together, they proposed collaborative projects, scientific research, cultural exchange programs, and trade agreements that benefited both peoples. The court began to see that this union was more than symbolic. It was practical. It was transformative. Elias also saw challenges. Not all aliens were pleased. Some nobles whispered that humans were dangerous because they could think differently. Some feared that humans would disrupt the careful balance of power. Elias did not respond with force or arrogance. He responded with patience, reasoning, and example. Humanity had survived because they did not seek dominance through fear, they led through understanding. In private moments, Lyreth spoke of her admiration for humans. "Your people survive where others fail," she said. "You find solutions not by following rules but by understanding them. That is rare among the stars." Elias smiled. "Humans survive because we have no choice. We adapt, we cooperate, we endure. Sometimes it takes others longer to see the value in that." The weeks that followed cemented their influence. Earth gained new allies in the Empire, and Thalzar began to adopt practices inspired by human thinking, emphasizing collaboration, empathy, and innovation. The galaxy took notice. Stories spread of the human who had passed the trial of worth, married the alien princess, and brought change without a single act of violence. Elias reflected on the journey. When he had first arrived on Thalzar, he had been uncertain, nervous, and completely unprepared for the challenges ahead. Yet through observation, reasoning, and a steady confidence in humanity's strengths, he had navigated trials that no one expected him to pass. He realized that humans had something unique, an ability to thrive not despite adversity, but because of it. The day came when he and Lyreth visited the heart of the Empire, meeting leaders from hundreds of star systems. Elias spoke of cooperation, problem-solving, and shared prosperity. Where some expected a human to be meek, he was firm but reasonable, persuasive without force. The aliens listened. They debated. They agreed. Slowly, the galaxy shifted its perception of humanity. In the quiet moments, Elias walked through the palace gardens with Lyreth, reflecting on how far they had come. "It's strange," he said. "I came here as an ambassador, expecting to negotiate trade. Instead, I've become part of your family, your culture, and perhaps even your history." Lyreth took his hand. "And you have changed mine, not through strength or technology, but through spirit, intelligence, and heart. Humans, you are more remarkable than most of my people imagined." Elias felt a deep sense of pride and purpose. Humanity had proven itself not by conquest, but by example. They had survived, adapted, and influenced a powerful alien empire through courage, understanding, and the willingness to face impossible odds. In the vastness of the galaxy, humans were small, yes, but they were significant. As the twin suns set once more, casting long golden shadows across the crystal towers, Elias knew that the future was uncertain, but bright. Together with Lyraeth, he would continue to build bridges, inspire change, and demonstrate that humans could endure, adapt, and thrive in a universe that often underestimated them. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans did not need to dominate to be powerful. They led through spirit, intelligence, and the quiet strength of resilience. And as Elias stood beside Lyraeth, he realized that this was only the beginning. Humanity's story among the stars had just begun, and its potential was limitless. The stars above shimmered with possibility, and for the first time in history, a human had not only survived an alien empire's greatest challenges but had begun to reshape it, not with weapons, but with ingenuity, courage, and heart. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.